Hi, I'm back with graphic design, lesson 1, part 2. Do you like history? You can simply type Y for yes and N for no or D, depend what type of history. Since most of you said either D or N. To fully understand graphic design, it is important to look back to origin. I do my best to making this interesting and fascinating as possible. Why is history of design so important? That I need to work in the lesson before getting into history, I want you to fully understand impact design history had on society. Well, I believe the most important reason is the fact that history helps you to make connections and understand your past largely to connect to your future. History also creates awareness and understanding and helps you to gain insight into other cultures. Did you know the fact that fascinated the invention of printing press in 1450 by Johannes Gutenberg in Germany? Why is invention of printing press is so important? The printing press allowed for society to become literate. The printing press such an impact before its invention, the gap between upper class and lower class by creating a middle class. After the invention of printing press, it allows the thousands of people to get opportunity to become literate and that's create a middle class. It's obviously impossible to grab history of design in one timeline, never mind one lesson, but I would at least identify and brief discuss some important events which are important to course of design. We start where he back in 15,000 BC. During the prehistoric time around 20,000 to 15,000 BC, it's a brief that Lascaux cave painting in France were created. There are over 600 painting and ceiling and wall of these caves. What these paintings have common in graphic design is the fact that belief might there are epics of visual communication. When humans started to communicate visually in order to give them some power of some form of power over these creatures. Since they most covered hunt togetherness, it also means to preserve a time in history as well as memories. In about 3500 BC, from nomad and reascents, the fact they probably make them away from other skills and tools. One such skill is writing, which is form of visual communication. The first form of writing was cuneiform, and shortly thereafter, the invention of writing was invented by the Egyptians. We find that the Middle Age 1450, Johannes Gutenberg, a goldsmith, invented printing press, which was inspired by combining a wooden block printed created by the Chinese. This invention of printing press helps to grab information quickly and accurately. Its mention helped civilization and literate. Have you ever heard about Bauhaus? Simply type Y for yes and N for no. If you didn't, then you will surprise. How Bauhaus movement are so important to design. So now we have skipped 5,000 years later and find ourselves Bauhaus movement. What makes a Bauhaus old school situated in Germany? That it operated from 1990 until just before Second World War. So early short period of 14 years, however, it influenced all form of designs, architecture to graphic designer. German architect believe the art and the design can be brought anyone can be make it more interesting and functional. Its influence can be seen today and created the gateway of modern design. On 24 January 1984, Steve Jobs introduced the very first Apple Mac touch computer. Why this invention is so significant? Well, an Apple Mac Touch, the personal computer to popularize the use of mouse as well as the graphical user interface. But to put things more perspective, a graphical user interface is a way to interacting visually with the computer, making use of icons, making the folders, simply clicking mouse and move objects around the mouse. In 1987, Adobe Illustration was commercialized and initially in-house and fund development software. Today we use Adobe Illustration for creation of logos, illustrations and photography in form of vector images. We will get into more detailing regarding raster images and vector images at later stage. In 1987, an Adobe purchased license for Photoshop in 1988. In 1990, Adobe Photoshop was released for Mac and Touch exclusively, but in 1993, it will release for Microsoft Windows as well. Photoshop is photo manipulation program and a line using to create the raster format. We will start use of Photoshop later in lesson. Quark, which is opposition of Adobe released a very powerful featured Quark Press, which is layout and design format. Quark Express dominating as sometime and this motivate Adobe to create InDesign. InDesign is released in 1999. It was first native and Mac operating system stop publishing software, an Adobe InDesign software that combines all your Photoshop and Adobe Creator into one document. And in recent years have creatability in creative interactive PDFs and documents as well. This was 17 years of history grabbed in couple of minutes. I will move up to graphic design careers. Did you know graphic design is actually a very wide field and variety of different designers here. These three softwares must know designer should be familiar with as they work in the mutual relationship with one another. What is the difference? As you continue with this course and practical experience and you are able to understand these programs better. In short, Adobe Illustration is vector based, creates digital illustrations, vector don't lose quality and small file size. Next is Photoshop. Photoshop is photo manipulation, enhance or manipulation photos, and raster based images and consisting of pixels. InDesign. InDesign is layout based features, combine Illustrator and Photoshop artwork, and interactive documents, and create a user friendly documents and PDFs. Graphic design even correlates with other careers and sometimes it can be stepping into different type of design careers. For now, ever we will look at various graphic design careers. First is advertising designer. Advertising designer. Next is environmental designer, publication designer, motion designer, corporate designer, web designer, as well as packaging designer. Advertising designer, this used the Adobe Illustration, Photoshop, and InDesign. Examples are magazines and newspapers, brochure design, email newsletter, social media graphics, and infographics. Next is environmental designers. This was by the architecture and environment to make spaces and more attractive and officially to people move aroundly. In all aspects knowledge of architectural and interior designer and industrial designer as well in landscaping. The skills will need in the top of the careers is Adobe Illustration and Photoshop. Examples include exhibition and event spaces, mural artwork, signage, which also nowadays digital, office branding, and stadium concert branding. Next is publication designers. Publication designers focuses on the publication like the magazines and newspapers. Nowadays, publication designers focusing on digital, including e-publications and digital magazines. The skills will need in the top of the careers are Adobe Illustration, Photoshop, and InDesigns. Examples include e-books, e-publications, magazines and newspapers, catalogs, as well as menus. The next is motion designers. Motion designers get a lot of popularized during the last decade to technological advancement. A very popular program is to create movements and Adobe After Effects. The skills will need in the top of the careers are Adobe Illustration and Photoshop. Examples include TV advertising, movie intros, text animations, apps, and video games. Next, corporate designers. Corporate designer is a role is to add a company creating successful brand that communicate successfully target audience. For this, you have a great knowledge of elements of designs and principles of designs. The skill will need in the top of the careers are Adobe Illustration, Photoshop, and InDesign. Examples include logo design, business card design, letterhead design, stationery. Next is web designers. Not an early need to be a creator effective website, but also need to understand to make the website more appealing. The skills will need in the top of the careers are that is Adobe Illustration and Photoshop. Examples are websites and mobile apps. The last is packaging designer. Packaging designer is not early to look on this statistics of package that would also need to consider which material is best for this package. The skills we'll need in the top of the careers are Adobe Illustration, Photoshop, and InDesign. Examples include Canon Food, wrapper and label, and takeaway containers. Thank you.